Hello and welcome to Stupid Ancient History with Midgley.
And Taylor and our expert, non-expert and special guest James the Science Toolboy.
As always, we're wearing togas. We've all now got comfy new seats, which is nice. And today we're looking at the causes of the Ionian revolt, aka Ancient Greek Brexit. So, previously on Stupid Ancient History, we looked at Darius the Great and his campaign against the Scythians.
Which, to be honest, was not really that great, was it?
Roaring success, I don't know what to mean.
Well, yeah, he did get sent packing back across the Danube.
So no great expansion of the empire for him. Not looking so great now, is he, anymore? Kind of that name doesn't fit,
Who decides he gets that name? Is this just like...
Darius.
He does.
He's
Yeah.
just...
Do you want to argue with him?
I mean, now, because he's been dead for 3,000 years.
But yeah, no, true. He's not had a great time expanding the empire, but he has done a great deal of reorganising the empire, and he's embarked on some great building projects.
Not to mention sorting out anyone who thought he didn't have a legitimate claim to the throne.
He's still wanting to question Darius's greatness, James?
I've got all my ears, and he's gone. So
Well.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were a few impalings, we should mention.
Yeah, but again, no great expansion of the empire. It doesn't matter how many people he killed or how horribly, he didn't make the empire grow any bigger.
Yet.
Yet.
Okay. Spoilers.
So, our story today picks up exactly at the end of the Scythian campaign, and it comes as a bit of a warning about being too good at what you do.
Especially if your boss is Darius.
Yeah.
I constantly have a problem being too good at what I do.
We'll tell Dr. Wilde that and
It's-
see what she says.
It's a burden, to be honest.
So, if you remember, when fleeing back to Persia from the Scythians, the Ionian Greek forces were given the job of defending the bridge across the Danube.
And particularly important in this was Histiaeus, who's the tyrant of Miletus, he's the guy who convinced the other Greeks to stay, fight the Scythians, and not just do one.
Who is he then? So the tyrant, that's not a bad thing, as
No.
I have in my mind.
He's not a...
So they put it to a vote because they're Greek,
Yeah.
didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you like that kind
he's
of
the one
thing.
who convinced them to stay loyal to Darius, defend the bridge.
Yeah, he's become the man of the hour.
Yeah.
But
Darius became a little bit suspicious of his abilities, particularly his abilities to convince others.
When you say suspicious, it's like he's too good at this, I don't like
Yeah.
him, or
Yeah.
he's not accusing him of witchcraft or anything. It's
No.
actually just okay.
no,
He basically just sees him as someone that's like, he could get people to do something that I don't want them to do, so maybe I need to get rid of him.
yeah.
Is that like a constant paranoia with rulers? Because if he's proven himself loyal, you could go, oh, he can convince people to do things I want them to do.
Yeah.
Or he's
But the
taken-
danger is he's too good if Stalin's entire life was littered with doing in people who were actually good at the job.
Yeah.
Because they were a little bit too good at the job. So Darius is a bit worried about how convincing Histiaeus can be. So as a reward for his awesomeness, Darius insists Histiaeus comes to Susa as a royal courtier.
Kind of following in the footsteps of previous rulers. then.
Similar to Cyrus, yeah.
Yeah.
Well
Except-
done.
except-
Here's a reward.
Yeah, except he's not conquered him. They're actually friends already.
That friends may be a stretch.
Well, colleagues.
Yeah.
Surely, like bringing him to the Susa, that's like the new capital, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
That's a good thing. It's a promotion.
Well, that's certainly kind of how Darius
Wanted
said
to
it.
spin it.
Yeah. So Histiaeus would stay in Susa as a pretty permanent guest of Darius.
In this ridiculously opulent palace. That sounds dreadful.
Yeah, it sounds horrendous, doesn't it?
Comfy
Flying
pillows,
around,
nice
being
food.
fed.
Yeah, it sounds just...
The
I
horror.
hate that. I'd hate that. So Histiaeus was locked in a cellar.
Well, he wasn't
No.
locked in a cellar.
Oh, sorry, yeah, so it wasn't locked in a cellar and fed on fish heads. So this really was a significant promotion. So this was quite good for him.
Well-
Turned out okay.
It's better than being locked in a cellar being fed on
It is.
fish.
It all seems to be coming up Histiaeus at the moment.
Yeah, but the problem for Histiaeus is that effectively he can't leave. He can't go back to Miletus.
Right, okay.
So he's kind of under house arrest.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, Darius is clearly concerned that if he goes back to Miletus, he's going to gain further popularity. So Darius keeps him literally where he can see him all the time.
And I'm presuming he never sticks his neck out to ask, can I go home now, please?
Would you?
No.
No.
It's that adage, isn't it, though? Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.
Yeah, or people who you might
I-
one day become an enemy if you never know what
Well,
happens.
is this not potentially making him an enemy? Just it's effectively a very well treated one.
Yeah.
Making him a
But
prisoner.
if he is an enemy, I mean, what's he going to do? He's in
He's locked
Susa,
up.
yeah.
So where is this going? I'm guessing nowhere good for Darius.
Well, with Histiaeus firmly locked in his kind of golden cage, it's not a literal golden cage.
It
but-
may as well be from how you described Susa
yeah,
last time.
pretty much. So he's in his golden cage in Susa, so the governorship of Miletus goes to his nephew. This is a guy called Aristagoras, because obviously Histiaeus can't do his job because he's with Darius. So Aristagoras is a guy who clearly has ambition, but also when Darius came to power, he felt the need to do something to show he's worthy of such position. You know, the people in Miletus, all of a sudden, he's the new tyrant.
So none of these people really seem content to be just good governors. They need some grand
Power
example
hungry.
of
He's feeling a bit insecure because everyone's going, well, you're not the real tyrant of Miletus, are you? You're just a stand-in while Histiaeus is eating figs. But he's got ambition as well. He sees this as his first step up the ladder.
But they wouldn't have been the only one, would they? There would have been other people in Miletus who would kind of be questioning why Aristagoras was the new tyrant. There might have also been other people there that wanted to be the new tyrant as well.
So
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, because it's gone to his nephew, is it a hereditary thing, or are you like elected, or
You're not necessarily elected. It's more sometimes it's appointed.
Right,
The problem
okay.
is there's so many different versions or models. We're not 100% sure, but it's likely whoever became the standing tyrant, there was going to be someone behind him going, "That should be my job. That
Yeah.
should be my job. That should be my job."
They didn't feel the need to get any horses involved.
No horses involved.
No, but it kind of fits in, doesn't it? If you've been raised to achieve greatness within your culture, you've got to be a leader, or you've got to have military success. It's not really a surprise that they're all going for the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not really so much of a shock. So anyway, either way, the scene is kind of set for Aristagoras to do something to boost his standing in Miletus in the Persian Empire.
Make a name for himself.
Yeah, so he needs to show that he is the rightful person to be in charge.
Sounds ominous.
It's like you've done these before, James.
It wouldn't be worth talking about if all went well, would it?
True.
So go on. What masterstroke of a plan does he come up with?
How do you know it's not a masterstroke?
Because we're talking.
Yeah,
about
okay.
it. It must be rubbish.
So, Aristagoras is approached by a group of exiles from the island of Naxos, which is not too far from Miletus. And they're effectively oligarchs who've been kicked out of power there in kind of a mini sort of revolution.
By who?
The people of Naxos.
Oh, okay.
It's just a regime change, and they've been booted out, and they're grumpy, and they want their comfy palaces back.
Is Naxos part of the Persian Empire?
Yes, well, sort of. It's on the periphery.
Oh, okay.
So either way, I mean, they come to Aristagoras and they want him to help them overthrow the current government in Naxos and re-establish them in power. And in return, obviously, they'll cut him some favourable deals. Naxos is one of these key islands from crossing the Aegean.
Okay.
If you think about it like stepping stones, they go from the east to the different Cycladian islands.
Okay.
So Naxos is quite important.
Aristagoras, however, also has got designs on ruling Naxos himself. So it's not just about kind of doing a bit of a deal. He wants to actually have full control
Yeah.
of Naxos. So as well as giving him a military victory, it would also raise his standing. So it would show that he's definitely the right person for the job because
Okay.
he's had some military success.
And his bank account.
Yeah, it shows that he's a good ruler and it kind of bumps up the coffers in the bank.
Are kind of the tyrants and various vassal kings to Darius, are they allowed to do stuff like this?
With permission.
Okay.
But again, if it's expanding the empire,
He-
Aristagoras is looking at it, this can only go well.
As long as they still
What?
pay as long as they still pay the taxes.
What could possibly go wrong?
So Aristagoras agrees, but he has to go and run the idea past Artaphernes, who is the satrap of the region. So he's like the regional manager.
Okay.
But also we'll need to borrow some troops and cash to make sure that it all goes ahead. Okay.
Okay.
So Aristagoras goes to Sardis, which is kind of the regional capital of the whole Ionian coast. 'Cause
Okay.
Artaphernes is his boss.
Yeah, it's like a branch manager, regional manager.
Yeah,
that,
so-
that kind of hierarchy.
Yeah, Sardis is the regional capital. Places like Miletus, Halicarnassus, all these places are all under him. So he's got to go to him. He goes to Artaphernes, gives him his best pitch, does his best salesman routine, and Artaphernes agrees, because he sees it as, again, a win-win, and he agrees and he lends him troops and enough money to bankroll this invasion/revolution.
But what we should also point out is that Artaphernes is a relative of Darius,
Okay.
and technically Aristagoras now kind of also owes Darius.
Right. Okay.
'Cause technically all these troops
I was gonna
belong
say,
to Darius.
Yeah.
I'm guessing not if any. What do you call satraps?
Satraps.
Satraps.
Yeah. If any led them troops, they'd still be Darius's
Yeah.
troops and money.
Yeah.
Yeah, Darius has got his hands on everything.
Right. Okay. I'm starting to lay the foundation for where I can start seeing things going wrong.
Don't know what you mean. So either way, Artaphernes agrees, but he gives Aristagoras one condition. Because if he's putting up the money and the troops, he wants that his condition is that his general/admiral, a man called Megabartes, is actually in charge of the invasion.
Which
Okay.
seems fair enough, I think, wouldn't you say, James?
Is he just some rando, or is he an accomplished?
He's an accomplished general. So
Okay, so fair
Artaphernes. Artaphernes says, yeah, that's fine, but I want to make sure my guy's in charge because I know I can trust him. He's the man. So Aristagoras agrees. I mean, he's got no choice really. You can have the troops, but it comes with this guy. But in his head, Aristagoras is still very much the man in charge. It's his plan. It's his idea.
Yeah.
Mm.
He sees Megabartes is just there to organise it for him.
Okay.
So off they set, off to Naxos to invade, and all seems to be going well. James is laughing because he knows that as soon as you say that, it means that something's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
So until...
Whilst inspecting the ships, because they've got to harbour overnight on the way there, Megabartes sees a ship with no guard on duty, which is a bit of a no-no.
So just someone like patrolling the deck.
Yeah, everyone's obviously below decks,
Yeah.
having a good time. So he gets his guards and he sends them to find the captain, a guy called Skylax. He finds Skylax, is clearly unimpressed with him, and he has him put in irons, and as a further punishment, they shove his head out of an oar hole on the ship.
Okay.
So his body's in the ship, his head's sticking out of the ship.
For how long?
We don't know. We don't get to find out. I mean, it could have been a night. It
Yeah.
could have been for the entire invasion. It's not pleasant.
No. So Aristagoras takes offence at this, as Skylax is one of his men and demands that he is released. So Megabartes refuses, saying that he is in charge. Aristagoras ignores him and releases him anyway.
Okay.
So he's basically ignoring the chain of command.
Yeah.
There's a lot of I'm in charge. No, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
No, I'm in charge. So Aristagoras does his thing, and in revenge, Megabartes is not letting this lie. He's not just leaving this one. Megabartes, he's going to take a small ship, and in the middle of the night, he sails to Naxos. And when he gets to Naxos, he tells the rulers and everyone on the island about what's going to happen. He points out, do you know there's a big Persian invasion fleet coming over that horizon? Might want to prepare for that.
Is that not just really petty?
Well,
It is. It's also kind of quite bad that you're basically just letting all of your own troops
Yeah.
get killed, aren't you, because you're dobbing them in.
Is he that indifferent because they're not his troops? He just borrowed them.
Well, partly that, but also he thinks if his troops turn up and see Naxos is all walled off and ready for a scrap, they'll be like, yeah, we didn't sign up for this, see you later, mate.
Right. Okay.
Bye, Aristagoras.
So needless to say, obviously with this warning, Aristagoras' hopes of an invasion fail because, as Mr. Mitchell has just said,
They rock up and
Naxos
go, oh
is
no.
prepared.
Everyone's all tooled up.
Yeah,
Tooled up, ready to go.
tooled up, walled in, with a food supply. It's like, not going to happen.
And basically, I mean, unless you have a massive invasion fleet, invading an island is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
You don't want to be stuck on a beach for 10 years like the Greeks at Troy. That didn't end well.
I mean, it
Ready,
doesn't sound terrible. I know it would be, but
No, they've run out of cocktail umbrellas.
just call it off.
Yeah.
Shocking. So Aristagoras returns to Miletus in a less than favourable state, shall we say. So his grand plan to raise his standing is now in tatters.
What's worse is he's now in debt to Artaphornes and effectively Darius.
It's going to go well for him.
Yeah, and needless to say, the doubters in Miletus, all those people who thought, well, why aren't I tyrant? Why is he tyrant? Are even less impressed with him. Even the average people are looking at him going, how did you get that wrong?
Yeah, on like the hierarchy of, cock-ups, where is military defeat? Is it like quite high?
Military defeat against a significant army would be fair enough,
Okay.
even the Scythians. Military defeat against a tiny little island of fishermen and merchants, it's not good.
Right, okay.
So he's in a bit of a state. So as Herodotus puts it,
Aristagoras was now unable to keep his promise to Artaphornes. The call upon him to meet the expenses of the men's pay had landed him in difficulties, and he was afraid that, owing to the failure of the attempt on Naxos and his quarrel with Megabartes, he might lose his position in Miletus.
Seems fair.
Yeah.
So how does he dig himself out of this sizable hole he's got himself into?
well, so Aristagoras is pacing up and down his house, wondering what to do, wringing his hands, umming and ahhing, and when he receives a secret message.
Oh.
So, Herodotus says, these various causes of alarm were already making Aristagoras contemplate rebellion, when something else occurred to confirm his purpose. This was the arrival from Susa of a slave sent by Histiaeus, the man with the tattooed scalp, urging him to do precisely what he was thinking of, namely to revolt. Histiaeus had been wanting to make Aristagoras take this step, but was in difficulty about how to get a message safely through to him, as the roads from Susa were watched. So he shaved the head of this most trustworthy slave, pricked the message on his scalp, and waited for the man's hair to grow again. I mean, that is horrendous, isn't it?
I mean,
I want you to send a message. Okay, bend over. Start like stamping it in your head.
He's tattooing his head. I mean, do you not send letters like that? Am I doing it wrong?
No, and I would not let anyone tattoo my head, or any other part of me for that matter.
What's wrong with just like, a note in the shoe? That's the scene.
If only they had Sharpies, then they could have just written it on.
I mean, they didn't have email, so he's got to send it somehow.
Right, so he's shaved this bloke's head, tattooed a message on, waited for his head to grow. So this is a long form plan.
It's a well thought out plan, yeah.
Sent him
back to Miletus.
And then shaved his head again and gone, look, here's the message.
Yeah.
What I don't
But you
understand
not just told it to him.
No, it's tattoo, isn't it? I was going to say if you just scab over and come off, but no, it's tattoo.
Well, tattoos
so
do
still-
scab over, so you'd have to deal with that as well.
Yeah.
But like James said, it's a long thought out plan, if not a slightly fanciful description.
Yeah, it's also from Herodotus.
Yeah.
So.
But either way, I mean, it's a bold move, and we're told Histiaeus is pushed into this rash decision. Again, because of this imprisonment in Susa, he's getting a bit fed up of the soft pillows and fancy food.
I mean, you would do.
Yeah, there's only so many dancing girls you can watch before you long for your home.
Before you start tattooing
men
messages onto people's heads.
So, with that said, he clearly hopes that Darius is going to send him to Miletus to sort out any form of rebellion, and as soon as he is there, he can re-establish himself as a tyrant of Miletus, some person that's in charge.
Okay, so do we actually think he wants them to revolt and go to war, or is it just that, send me sort out, I'm back here now, this is great.
Yeah.
For Histiaeus, I think it's more, oh no, there's trouble, this is what happens when I'm here and not there, let me go back. The problem is Aristagoras is so deep in the hole that his version of rebellion will actually be an actual rebellion.
Right.
Yeah. So, either way, it seems that it's just enough support for Aristagoras to go ahead with planning a revolt. So it works in terms of what?
Oh yeah, Histiaeus plays him like a cheap fiddle.
Yeah.
So how easily does he convince people to revolt? Are the Ionian Greeks unhappy with Darius, or?
Well, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Okay. Does he have his uncle's penchant for convincing people to do what he wants?
It seems he's quite convincing.
Okay.
So, obviously, Miletus can't openly rebel against Darius and the might of the entire Persian Empire and the vengeance of Darius on its own. One tiny little city-state against the whole Persian Empire. It's not difficult to work out how that's going to end.
Just like a steamroller.
Yeah, pretty much. So, Aristagoras goes about meeting with the leaders from other Ionian states, trying to get them on board. And there's lots of umming and ahhing, and some leaders rightly point out the madness of going against Darius. I mean, literally going, you see that Behistun inscription? See what happened the last time?
Just read it.
Yeah.
Oh, and they're obviously the guy with the Santa. These are the guys with the Santa hats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are we saying that Miletus is a bit like the ancient version of Nigel Farage?
Yes. Well, we'll get to that soon. This is
God.
Greek. This is why this is ancient Greek Brexit.
So it seems it's convinced the other Ionian Greeks. The various leaders, prompted by Aristagoras, even go so far as offering to establish some form of popular democracy in the region.
I mean, after all, this is all the rage since Athens have
I'm
given
about
it
to
a
say,
go.
if they're Greeks, they like that sort of thing.
They like that kind of thing. They've seen someone else doing it and going, oh, that looks pretty
Wouldn't
good.
that just kind of defeat the purpose, though? Because it would mean that Miletus and Aristagoras are effectively removed from power if they become a democracy.
It says some form of
Okay.
democracy.
So basically not a democracy.
Democracy underneath the time. You can vote on things like what to name streets and you know how many chickens people have, but
Whether that
basically,
guy should have tattoos on his head or not.
yeah, but basically you're not going to mess with
Me.
Yeah,
Well, however convoluted their kind of interpretation of democracy is, it works anyway, doesn't it? Because as a result, the Ionian leaders agree to have a revolt.
which paves nicely into 499 BC. Yeah, the entire Ionian coast, up in arms, kicks off against Darius.
Looking forward to this. So you're calling this the Greek Brexit? That's giving me perhaps an indication of how well this is going to go.
I don't know what you mean. We must
Does it
remember.
drag on for like years
4
and
years.
years and
Nothing's
nothing
done.
happens?
7
There's
years.
just lots of
Do
anger
they-
and protesting.
Do they start like paving over half of Kent as well to make a giant car park?
Well, not quite, because they've not discovered Kent yet. But the idea is that the Ionian revolt is effectively one man, Aristagoras, dragging the entire Ionian coastline out of the Persian Empire, basically for his own benefit.
Right.
And without being too political about it, it is very much David Cameron holding the referendum, thinking it's fine, it'll just silence my backbenchers and no one
Yeah.
expects us to leave Europe.
ERG
and
will be
then,
quiet for a while and then it'll all just blow over.
then people will forget, but it doesn't go his way, and then he's stuck going, right.
Have we got any way of knowing whether it caused the same amount of kind of tension and hostility as modern day Brexit? Have we got the point of view of the actual people or
We-
just the leaders?
Without giving too much away, there is a whole war that comes next. So, not wanting to say the two are going to end up exactly the same, I'm not suggesting that Europe will decide to reassert their power, but yeah, it leads to an entire conflict. There are lots of conflicts within the Ionians themselves. They're not 100% agreed on what this rebellion should look like.
Oh, sorry, this literally is like Brexit.
Yeah, so you've got Histiaeus, who...
Do they have a soft revolt, a hard revolt,
well, yeah,
a red,
Histiaeus...
white and blue revolt?
A revolt means revolt. Yeah, Histiaeus wants a tiny little soft revolt. He wants kind of like just the renaming of something, then business as usual. Whereas Aristagoras, who's
Wants
becoming...
to knock it down and burn it.
Well, he doesn't necessarily want to. He's
He
in
wants
this
blue
posi-
passports.
He's in the position where he has to knock it down and burn it because he's gone down that path of like David Cameron and the referendum. No one's going to vote for this madness. Oh, they voted for this. Aristagoras is thinking, Naxos aren't going to fight back. Oh, dear.
I wonder what the ancient equivalent of the big red NHS bus was.
Oh.
That's the ships going to Naxos.
Look,
Look, if we take Naxos, we can have 350 million a year for, fig trees. But it doesn't work. So this is why you can liken it very, it's an accidental revolt. It's someone saying that this will happen. It doesn't work out. how they want, and they all end up in a massive mess.
It's just a power play, isn't it? That's basically what it is. It's just someone.
It's a failed power
Yeah,
play.
it's someone that wants power, and then the situation just kind of gets out of hand.
I mean, not to kind of, put too much on the comparison. They don't end up with a Boris Johnson type in charge, do they?
No, because everyone died.
Oh, lovely.
But again, if we're looking at this comparison as well, if we look at, put our proper historian hats on and look at causes, the idea that one man can just suddenly convince an entire coastline to do something is a bit far-fetched. And like you said earlier, there are other alternate explanations as to why this happened. So we know the Ionian states were quite wealthy compared to others in Persia, so it's likely they will have had to foot maybe a bigger bill for Darius' Scythian campaign, so they'll be unhappy with that. They are ethnically Greek rather than Persian, so there would be some kind of deeply entrenched difference, if not open hostility. So there are, other writers do give alternate explanations, but they're so vague and so flimsy that we've got to go with Herodotus.
Yeah.
It's likely Aristagoras, when he's convincing the other Ionians, did pick up on things like, why are you paying all this tax to invade some people and lose? Why are we having to pay these tributes? Also, Darius is looking a bit weak at the moment because
After his Scythian.
the Scythians have just shoved him back over the river. Also, you can also even point out that because Histiaeus is effectively trapped in Susa, the other Ionian leaders may look at that and go, yeah, it looks nice, but we know really what the deal is, so we're not overly keen with Darius.
Yeah, potentially could also have gone like, look, Darius is only alive because we defended that bridge. How awesome are we? We should be on our own.
It's one of those. There's the weakness of Darius, there's the likely overtaxation of the Ionian states, general discontent, and the Ionians thinking, actually, we're pretty good at this. Let's see what happens.
Let's go it on our own, and what could go wrong?
Well, again, they may even look at it as like, maybe if we have some form of rebellion, we can get Darius to renegotiate taxation. We don't want to fully break away. We just want to.
Is there any precedent for this, or is this a new thing within the empire?
Well, there was the revolt of the Nine Kings, but that got
there seems to be very little negotiating or retaxation going on there.
Yeah, no. It's almost like if we look at how Cyrus manages empire, he seemed very kind of light touch and just do your thing, and that's fine. But when we said with Darius, when he rebrands the empire, he has much more of a tight control. So it's literally, it could almost be the Ionians going, Persians and their red tape telling us what shape our bananas can be. It's that same kind of mentality. We don't want the Persians coming over here telling us how many whelks we can eat or
size of our pillows or whatever.
Yeah,
whatever.
even though it's complete nonsense. It's the popular narrative.
Out of context, it sounds like we're making these up. These are so stupid.
It's actually really not. So there you have it, a quick look at the causes of the Ionian revolt. So thank you for listening. We hope this has been useful. Leave us a comment below, and until next time, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.